Welcome to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Host Randy Chevrier and Sheldon Napastuk guide you through great stories that spark great conversations. Two really big guys talking a big game. The boys are locked in and ready to go. Welcome to The Ride.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday night, and you know what that means. The Ride with Chevy and Nasty, episode 54, brought to you as always by Performance Freight Management, YYC Calgary Business, and We Drone Real Estate Media. Chev, episode 54, number 54. Who do you got for us tonight?
Brian Urlacher, the great Chicago Bears linebacker. Is that him in a Seahawks jersey? Is that Trey Funness? No one remembers.
That's not Urlacher.
Trey, no one remembers Urlacher for the Seahawks.
I know what's going on.
Seahawks,
I know that's Trey's team.
That's Trey's.
He's putting his stamp on number 54.
Yeah,
and, I guess maybe that's allowed. That's certainly not Brian Urlacher. But perhaps another number 54. I was looking back through.
That's Bobby history. Wagner. He's calling us a fool. Trey's. Well,
Bobby
you know
Wagner.
What? We got the same pipes, but you know what? Bobby Wagner is not as famous as Brian Urlacher. Like, he's not even on the list as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, Trey. He's not there yet. Who's your 54?
I got another number 54. Looking back through Stamp's history, because there's not a lot of famous number 54s, but I found John Frazani, right? The legendary Calgary football player. Owner of the Stampeders, businessman, built Sport Check. He's a man who almost single-handedly turned the Stampeders around back in, what year did they buy it? 2004, 2005?
2005.
Tremendous the first year you got here.
Yeah.
And made a tremendous difference on this team. So yeah, Brian Urlacher and John Frazani, guys, I think we're in the land of legends here.
And I guess Bobby Wagner for Trey, because he is quite a good linebacker for the Seahawks. He's pretty decent, but I wasn't thinking about him when I was thinking about great 54s. Nasty, we're gonna get this show going. It's time for some 300-pound poetry.
And now, 300-pound poetry with Chevy and Nasty.
There's a time for talk, there's a time for action, and this 300-pound ride is starting to gain some traction.
And in a move so fresh and unpredictably bold, the Elks welcome new head coach Mark Kilam to the green and gold.
A career Stampeder, but now alliances will change. For him, the Labor Day Classic will be really quite strange.
College football rivalry brought in the ugliness and all after some intense games ended in an all-in-all brawl.
A Jags QB got knocked out, though that wasn't the defender's intention. He hit a defenseless opponent in the head and now faces a 3-game suspension.
Yep. Nasty challenged me last week to keep this to a 1-hour show. No overtime or rambling monologues. So let's hit it hard and let's go. Yeah, you did challenge me. You said that Chev, I want to get out by 11:30. I want to get out in an hour. And I was like, you know what? Nasty, as we're trying to evolve this thing, as we're going to do some different things. I said, okay, I'm on board. So today we got Trey. He's going to be keeping an eye on that clock. He's going to get us in and out, let us know when we got to get out. But before we talk, we got to figure out what we're talking about today. So Trey, let's pop up the slate. Let's see what we're going to talk about. We did the 300-pound poetry. First segment, we're talking about Mark Kilam. Mark Kilam, the new Edmonton Elks coach, friend of ours, maybe a friend of the show. I think he's a friend of the show. We'll hit it with a little bit of Trey's trip to Vancouver, the Blitz, studs and duds. And we might pardonnez-moi, Mr. Joe Bidon.
Big news this week for sure.
Yeah. So Sheldon, you would kick it off, man. Let's kick it off.
That's funny. Daryl writes in, only 55 minutes left, boys. We got this, Daryl. We got this. You know what, Chev? I'll tell you what. The big news of the week, and we've been talking about this guy for some time. I mean, even back to last season. What is the future of him? And obviously this week, the big news in the CFL, one of the major stories in the CFL, Mark Kilam, the former hamstring stretcher for the Calgary Stampeders,
You're really on that hamstring stretch.
Well, that's how I only played with him as a hamstring stretcher. And then he, got into coaching, assisting at different positions, worked his way up to one of the most respected special teams coordinators in the league, and named associate head coach. This year, Stampeders are making some changes. They let him go. But the very first hiring of the year of the offseason goes to the Edmonton Eskimos, hiring Mark Kilam as their new head coach. Chev, you played for Mark Kilam. What do you think about this whole thing?
Yeah, well, first of all, I know, and you say you call him the hammy coach.
Oh, he's a hammy coach. Stretch your hammies with his long flowing locks, and he's cut them off. But over the year, I remember when he first came in, and he wasn't the hamstring stretcher. I mean, he was the strength and conditioning coach, and he was very knowledgeable at what he did, very passionate about what he did. And he changed up a lot of the things that we used to do in terms of how we warmed up, and stretching was done after you warmed up. It wasn't like stretch lines at the start of practice like we used to do in the archaic days. He made a real impact right from day one.
Yeah.
But his passion and his willingness to learn and ingratiate himself into the system, he quickly started moving up the ladder.
Yeah, and I guess where I was getting at and where I want to start is if you only remember him for where he started, you don't put any respect in his journey. You got to understand, this guy has been in the CFL as a coach on the same team for the last 20 years. For the last 20 years, Mark Kilam has been with the Calgary Stampeders. Yes, he started as a strength and conditioning coach, worked his way into a defensive quality assistant with Coach Crehan. He worked his way then into a linebacking coach position. Then I believe he switched sides of the ball in Huff's first year as head coach. Maybe first 2 years, he was doing some stuff with the running backs, offensive quality control. He was learning under some great minds at the time. Then when Craig Dickinson left for actually, he just quit football for a couple of years before he resurfaced, I believe, in Winnipeg and then a couple of other places. Mark got the job as a special teams coordinator, and he held that post from, I believe, 2012. I'm going to say maybe even a bit, maybe 2010, up until this past season. And when the Stamps let him go, there was no one. I mean, we criticized the Stamps for a lot of things. We criticize him for, but not one time did anyone ever say, man, those special teams suck. We got to get rid of Mark Kilam. This is a guy that developed Rob Maver into one of the greatest punters that the Calgary Stampeders have ever seen. This is a guy that handpicked Rene Paredes into being one of the greatest kickers that the CFL has ever seen. He's had schemes and returners that have been successful year in, year out. And like I said, no one said, man, we got to get rid of this Kilam guy when it came time for the Stamps report card at the end of the year. But they did get rid of him. And I believe personally that Calgary's loss is going to be Edmonton's gain.
Well, really quickly after that all came down too, Rob Maver comes out writing that big op-ed piece that's been out there. A bunch of players came out with quotes in defense of Mark Kilam. Now, I know, and I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but it's one of those things. It's like, Chev, if your kid brother's son was out there running balls back on the field as a ball boy, that's what Mark was like the first couple of years that I was there. But you got to play under him, and reading what the players have spoken about, they speak really highly of him. How would you describe Mark Kilam's coaching style? Was he just a passionate energy guy? Was he a teacher? Was he an X and O's guy? Like what is Mark Kilam? Because a lot of us don't know.
He's all of those guys. So he's passionate. He has passion for the sport. You got to understand, when he was in his first couple of years with the Stampeders, he wasn't getting paid. He was that typical a CFL story of a guy that just put it all out there to try and make his way through the ranks. So this is a guy, what I like about Mark is whenever you have a company and you see the boss that started at the bottom and he knows every position, he knows how to do every job in that company. When I was a kid, I worked at a bus company, and the guy who owned the bus company started doing what I did, sweeping the floors. It's kind of like the fire department. The chief of the fire department did exactly what the rookies do now: sweep the floors, clean the toilets, check the truck. And that's what Mark did. He wasn't given a position. He's not a former player. Yeah, people are going to say, well, he never played the game. He did play football at a high level. He played college football. But he wasn't given a job. He had to prove himself every step of the way. And you got to understand, this guy lasted through 3 head coaches. You're not, if you're not a quality individual, a quality worker, a smart guy, people generally flush staffs. He worked under Tom Higgins. He worked under Coach Huffnagel, 2 vastly polar opposite type coaches, and then Dave Dickinson, who's somewhere in the middle. So he lasted through 3 head coaches for 20 years. That says something about him. But what I know of him, he's an intense guy. He's passionate. He's very, very smart, very prepared, and he's a player's coach. He knows how to motivate the guys. He knows how to speak their language. He's a younger guy. He understands the younger athlete. And I think the reason why he saw so many guys step up, there was a quote from Alex Singleton. Alex Singleton is in the NFL. He's worried about the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football versus the Browns. He comes out and makes a statement about Mark Kilam being an Edmonton Elks head coach. There's a reason why guys have this guy's back, and there's a reason why I believe the time is right for him in Edmonton.
Well, and that's one of the things too. I watched a couple of interviews with Ed Hervey, and it was interesting too, because one of the articles that first came out was, hey, I heard what the players said about this guy, and I just knew we had to talk to him. But then in an interview, he came out and said, listen, it's more than just that. I needed to know his approach on football, his approach on discipline and consistency. I had to know his approach on everything else. And he said clearly right out of the gates, he was expecting this process to take a while, but Mark Kilam stood up head and shoulders above anybody else that he was interviewing. Now, my next question is this. So you talk about he's been in one program for 24 years, 3 coaches. Sometimes that's out of merit. Sometimes it's because out of convenience. Yeah, the guy's local. He's not going anywhere. He does a good job at this. But Ed Hervey saw something in him to give him that first opportunity that everybody needs to get as a head coach. My question, though, there's jobs and then there's jobs. This job is going to require a 180-degree turnaround in terms of team culture. It's going to be a real tough first job. You've even got an offensive coordinator that wanted the job, and as far as I know, he's still there. Do you see Mark Kilam, and honest hand on the heart, is a guy coming out through the path he's taken to be able to bring that kind of change, that kind of consistency, that kind of confidence that you're going to need as a head coach to win the guys over and turn that ship around? It's a big job.
Yeah, you know what? It's a big job. I think in terms of the coaching selection process, yes, Rick Campbell is out there. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I'm surprised they didn't go back to Rick Campbell. I mean, they went to get Chris Morris as the president of football ops. They went to get Ed Hervey as the GM. I thought they were going to go back to the Edmonton way, but it looks like they're going back to the Edmonton way with a little bit of a twist. And the twist is, hey, let's take a chance and let's do something new. And yeah, you're right. They're going to have a culture shift. It's going to have to shift away from the Coach Jones and sort of the void that was left there, and Jarius Jackson being the interim head coach. But Mark Kilam is a passionate guy. He inspires guys to play. And the test is not going to be in terms of Mark Kilam's skill set. I believe Mark Kilam has the skill set. He is ready. He's been ready for this. He was the Stamps associate head coach. He was the next in line to Stampeders until the wheels kind of fell off the last couple of years. Craig Dickinson comes to Stampeders. He's a special teams coach. He's been a head coach. It made almost Mark expendable just for that reason.
That's got to be motivating right in itself, right? Know that, like, I know Craig Dickinson's a qualified guy, but to actually be replaced by the general manager's brother is got to be humbling. But
again, that's in the rear view mirror. And I believe Mark Kilam's biggest job right now, and the only thing to focus on, not the culture, not the double E, is selecting a staff that he can work with so they can play football, as he said in his press conference, football that the fans of the Edmonton Elks can be proud of, a brand of football that people can get behind. And I think he can bring that. He's got it. And he's been, again, he looks like a young guy. You only had your limited experience with him when he was early in his career. I retired in 2017. I still see him. I actually saw him. It's funny. He was named on Saturday. I wished him congratulations when I saw the rumors. He told me they were true. On Sunday, I went to play ball hockey, and it just so happened that the place we play ball hockey is exactly the place where him and I met 20 years ago where we were training. And he was there picking his daughter up of basketball, and then they were going straight to Edmonton. It was very poetic that I ran into him, but he's excited. I think this is a big deal. Selecting the staff is the first challenge, figuring out what they're going to do with their quarterback, because I don't believe they have McLeod Bethel Thompson under quarterback. I don't believe
under contract.
Under contract, excuse me. I don't believe they can keep both those quarterbacks. They need to keep one or the other. in my opinion, I'm keeping McLeod Bethel Thompson, and I'm trying to trade Trey Ford because it caused too much distraction in the locker room with the media and the fans wanting the Canadian quarterback. I like the Canadian quarterback, but he's not the guy. I believe McLeod Bethel Thompson had the numbers to be your guy. Surround him with some weapons, then build the defense, and then get to work. And I think that's what he's got to do.
And you think you got to let Trey Ford go then? It's just going to be too much in that locker room for a new head coach.
I think so. It's going to be too much to manage. It was too much for Edmonton this year. It was 1 week, one guy. You heard the rumors all year that people want to trade Ford. That's a distraction. So let me ask you distractions. We got a couple minutes left. So
let me ask you this. Speaking of distractions, this is the one that gets me. So he's going to have to step in. The staff is hugely important. We can talk about that another time, but we all know that you need the staff around you. Quarterback decision, but now you also have Jarius Jackson. Jarius did a nice job as an offensive coordinator under Chris Jones. Chris Jones fired. He steps up to a very tough position. Maybe fumbles the starting quarterback a little bit, but he ended up with a winning record. Went on the record as well as saying, "I want the job."
Yeah.
So now you've got a head coach with an offensive coordinator, interim head coach that was the year before. Do you see any way that they can keep Jarius Jackson on this season?
I like the work that Jarius did in relief of Chris Jones. I thought he did some good things, but the problem is he did enough good work that there's people in the locker room that know him well enough that might be his guys, and you know how it is. If he's got that much pull in the locker room, it can be polarizing if things go south. I think they're going to have to clear house on that area too. They might keep some of the assistants. Shivers was good on defense. I think him and Kilam can work together. I just think that the guy who was the interim guy, because he lost out, I don't think he can work for the guy that won the job over him. And I think the guy who won the job will always have to be watching his back. And I think if you want the new coach to have the best chance to succeed, you got to give him a clear slate. You got to surround him with great players. You got to sign a quarterback, and then you got to get to work with his staff. That's all on the same page. That's my feeling. We got 2 minutes left, Sheldon. We're going to have to take a break. For all you guys following us, we appreciate you joining us live every Tuesday, 10:30 p.m. It's The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Follow us, like, and subscribe to all our socials. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X. We're going to be on Spotify, YYC Business. We launch, and we're on TikTok. So follow us, like, and subscribe. Just remember, we love having you here. Sheldon, you want to set something up before we go to break?
Well, yeah, I think we're already getting the spoilers out there from some of Trey's fans. But this weekend, our producer Trey had a bit of an adventure himself. Him and his girlfriend took a trip down to Vancouver, where the WWE Survivor Series was going on. And being the good hosts that we are, we gave him a challenge to get us some video, give us a taste of what it was like to be there in BC Place live watching a pay-per-view Survivor Series. So folks, as we go to break, we're going to leave you with a little montage that Trey put together for all of us. So enjoy the show, and we'll see you guys on the other side.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
That was a great video.
Wow.
Trey living out his bucket list, going to the WWE Survivor Series Warzone out in Vancouver at BC Place. Great job, Trey. Thanks for, again, we talked about it last week, and you did it. You and Tamron went out, had a great time, saw some nice food as well. The cookie made me hungry when I saw the cookie. But you know, the guys jumping off the cage through the tables. One of the clips you showed, Trey, you showed us on the weekend. It's one of the ones you had there. I think it was the last one when the guy jumps off the table and he goes through the guy. There was one guy lying on the side, and all of a sudden he gets up, and I think he got up in front of the cameraman, and then I think he realized it, and he just jumped out of the way like he got shot by a sniper. It was awesome. It was so awesome, but the place looked rocking. Looked like it was a great time, and BC Place hasn't been that full in a number of years. But Sheldon, you have any BC Place memories? Any
you know
favorite?
What? Oh, dude, I've got some. Most of them were kind of bad though. Like my most vivid, I got two of them. I'll just stick to the one. It was Louis Pastaglia's retirement game, and the lowly Saskatchewan Roughriders. We weren't going to make the playoffs that year, but you know, you want to win the last game of the year on a high note. And we went in there and we shocked the BC Lions. But as the game progressed, they had a chance to come back. We were in the middle of an epic goal line stand. I think, you know, it was third and goal from the 1 yard line. And they were already up in the they were up in the game. But they brought in Louis Pasaglia as quarterback to take the snap and to do the old tush push quarterback sneak into the end zone. We absolutely laid out, cut the thigh boards of the guards and the centers and the tackles. I mean, I don't think he made it 6 inches. But then as the pile gets bigger and bigger, you know what it does on the goal line. Referee comes out, and it was Jake. And Jake was our nemesis back in the day. Signals touchdown. There was no instant replay back then. It was clear that he was a half yard short or more, but they actually gave him the touchdown, meaningless touchdown to them. Maybe it meant something to him, but for us, we're playing for our pride, Chev, and we start talking about referees impacting games. Yeah, I felt like it was scripted. I was pissed off after that one, and that was probably one of my harshest BC Place memories, although I have more. How about yourself?
I got a couple. BC Place was where I played my last game when I was with the Riders in 2017, and I've told that story where they got my name on my jersey wrong, my last game in 16 years. One of the more memorable ones was right after they opened the new BC Place after the renovations, which was awesome. The BC Lions come out, and it's pregame warm up, and they're there. You remember the orange and white. Like I always picture Paul McCallum, their kicker, wearing the orange with the white helmet and the white pants, and it just looks so like bantam football. And you know, they come out, they do their warm up, Then they go back in to the locker room. Everyone goes back into the locker room. And when they came out for player introductions after we took the field, they came out in those black ninja suits where, it was their third jersey. We hadn't seen this ever. It was black. The numbers were black with the orange outlet. They all looked like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. It was the coolest jersey reveal I had ever seen in my life. It was before social media was a really big thing, so you didn't even know that it was coming. And that got in our heads. And I will never forget that, because that was like, as an opponent, I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, this stadium was beautiful. It was full. It was like the one of the opening games with a big, huge screen. Right, it doesn't rival the Dallas one, but it's in Canada. It's the nicest jumbotron, and it's pretty legit. And it was full, like both decks full. And here they come out with these black ninja suits, and we're like, oh man, we're done. Like they had us. They had us. They had so much swag.
Come on.
They had, oh yeah. Like that's all guys were talking about. They got in our heads. They got in our heads. And there's another situation we'll talk about later. But yeah, let's move on from BC Place. Again, Trey, thanks for putting that together. We're gonna hit the Chevy and Nasty Blitz.
Time for the Chevy and Nasty Blitz.
All right, Chev. This weekend, Christian McCaffrey, after missing most of the season with an Achilles injury, makes his comeback, and he's now out once again, and this time for the season after what looked like a really innocent run. Trey, do you got the film on that?
Oh, yeah.
Now, the play before, it looked like he might have tweaked something, but this is just weird, right? It just puts himself down. I don't know. Can you hear me right now? I think we're not muted.
Yeah, we're not muted.
Just a weird kind of thing. And it gets me thinking, when you see these weird injuries in the weird season that he had, Chev, think back. So this year he graces the cover of Madden football, and we've all known about the Madden Curse, especially back in the early 2000s. Is the Madden Curse a real thing?
So that's my question for the Blitz.
Yeah, because that's weird.
Yeah, it's a real thing, man. I believe it's a real thing. The EA Sports came out publicly and said that the Madden Curse is not a real thing. And when someone comes out publicly to deny something, chances are it's real. And you look, Trey put up this great graphic here. I mean, more often than not, that green bar there underneath the players means that they are cursed. So more often than not, any player that's been on the cover of Madden has been cursed. It's a real deal. Christian McCaffrey, the great running back that he is, there were articles in the summer when he got named as the Madden cover boy saying, man, we hope, and San Francisco better hope that the curse isn't real. Not only does he get injured once, he gets injured twice, and once on his return game. Now, probably not a great idea on San Francisco's part to play him in a game that's in the snow where the conditions and the footing isn't the greatest with an Achilles injury. But man, it is 100% real. And if you want to break this down further, Sheldon, if I'm a player and they're saying, hey, would you like to be on the Madden cover? I'm probably going to say no. I am probably going to say no.
Well, you just look at that graphic right there, and the first 10 years of it were just uncanny. I mean, going back to, I think it was 2000 or 2004, 2000, I think was when they brought it out. Now it's even out over the years. What I was reading is somewhere around 60% right now. We're 60% cursed. That's one guy in the NFL cursed 60% of the time. The last few years have been a little gentler on the guys, but yeah, it is uncanny. You could not pay me enough money for that honor. I'll tell you what. The front runner for the cover this year is Saquon Barkley. I was talking to my kids. I was like, guys, who do you don't do it? Do you know, I did some numbers. Running backs 100% of the time have been cursed. Have 100. So 6 of 6 running backs that have appeared on the cover have been cursed. Now I'm telling you, we're talking about Eddie George fell off a cliff. Marshall Faulk fell off a cliff. Sean Alexander fell off a cliff. And these are guys that had 5 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons fall off a cliff. Peyton Ellis
for the Browns. He was a fullback that had like an over 1,000-yard season. He was like the poster child for the fullback. They thought that he was the next coming of Mike Allstott. Fell off the cliff. Never even, I don't even think he played again after that. And then you look at Adrian Peterson, fell off a cliff.
You're missing Brett Favre.
Well,
his 22 interceptions. Keep going. Keep it coming, Chef.
I'm talking about running backs.
I'm talking
about running. And then Christian McCaffrey, that's 6 of 6 running backs. If you're a running back and they ask you to go on the cover, if you're Saquon Barkley, say no thank you. If you're Jacobs in Green Bay, say no thank you. Just say no thank you. Quarterbacks, a little bit better, but we're 7 of 11. 7 of 11 quarterbacks or appearances on the cover have been cursed. So you're talking about Dante Culpepper, fell off a cliff. Michael Vick fell off a cliff. Donovan McNabb, after his Super Bowl MVP season, fell off a cliff. Vince Young, he couldn't even make the Roughriders when anybody made the Roughriders. The only guys that were successful in the last couple of years from the quarterback position on the cover, Mahomes, Brady and Mahomes shared it. They were both fine. Brady when he was a solo, and then Lamar Jackson. But it says Josh Allen fell off a cliff. So I don't know. And then there was Ray Lewis. He fell off a cliff, sort of. The season after kind of got hurt.
Yeah, the season after.
And then DBs, you're one of two. You're either Richard Sherman, who didn't fall off a cliff, or you're Troy Polamalu. So I don't know. Maybe they should pick one.
Jeff, I'll tell you what, Chev, I appreciate your research on this, but I think you prove the Madden curse is real, man. You could not pay me enough for that. What do you got?
Absolutely. So on Sunday, Detroit Lions coach Dan Campbell was caught off guard by a reporter when they asked him about Jamar Gibbs' social media post, which in the background, I guess he was in one of the meeting rooms. It had all their offensive plays with all their terminology, their verbiage, and what it means. And when Coach Campbell was asked about it, initially he was like, "Oh, I didn't even know about this. Like, this stuff can't be out there." Later on, he was on a radio station. Trey, let's play the clip of Coach Campbell being asked again about this.
I know everybody protects their playbook, protects their calls. Probably a story that you didn't think you'd be talking about this week, but Jahmyr Gibbs puts out a photo, and I got to imagine he didn't intend for part of the playbook to be out there. How do you handle a situation like that, and then does it change the calls that were exposed?
Yeah, I don't. Like I say, I know what it is, but I'm like, you know what? We might as well just put everything out there. I don't really give a crap. I mean, if we're going to lose because of code words, then we're not good enough anyway. So I think we'll just post the whole freaking playbook out there and every code word we've got. And it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt us. It won't affect us. And it's all good.
Now, this is an NFL coach, right? And I mean, these NFL playbooks are thick. The NFL fines guys thousands of dollars if they lose or share the playbook. Like, it's not a little deal in the eyes of the NFL. But Dan Campbell obviously walked back on his initial shock and reaction, maybe sensing that the reporter was trying to see if there's any tension between him and the player. Is this a case where Dan Campbell publicly is basically standing up for his player by not by not putting more attention to it than it probably needed? Or does he genuinely think that he doesn't care what people see? They still have to play the game, and it doesn't matter. Where do you think he is on this?
Well, first off, I think he absolutely cares, because every level of football I've ever played was big trouble. You couldn't leave your playbook in a hotel room, especially when you're on the road. Now, how big of an impact is it really going to have? I think for me, we've seen this before, where the first impression that I would get is I'm getting played here, right? I'm getting set up. It's opposite land, bizarro land is all mixed up. But the fact of the matter is there some benefits you can gain from it? And the truth is, yeah. I mean, I remember playing against Montreal when Brian Chew was the center, and I got a couple of reads on him, and I played like a zero nose where I had to beat him to play side. And you remember Brian Chew is super fast. Yep. Those advantages absolutely played in big time. And so if I know the coverage, if I know they're going to a slide protection on this down out of this set, then I'm pretty sure I know what the play is coming at me. So there is something to be lost by that. But at the end of the day, X's and O's and play calls, you still have to play the game. And if you're not prepared as a defense for what they're going to do, you're not going to win. And if you're guessing based off of the plays that they're calling, it's in your head that, okay, they're doing this. I think they're doing this, but you're in your head. Football is not meant to be played. It's cerebral in your preparation, but once you line up, it's all experience, reps, muscle memory, and anticipation. And if you're taking the time to decipher calls, your head's in the wrong space.
Yeah, well,
so I think they're and they won, right? I think that's proof of it right there.
But there's a reason that all NFL coaches talk like this, right? There's a reason, because they don't want the lip readers to get their play calls. There's a reason that Spygate was a thing, because people were filming practices. There's a reason why in 2012, the Calgary Stampeders, instead of focusing on the Grey Cup, we were looking in the stands at Rogers Centre, thinking that Chris Jones was up there with cameras and binoculars stealing our signs, and Don Matthews, historic for that, right? Like, everyone knows that goes on, and any level of competitive advantage could work. So I don't think that Dan Campbell is as laissez-faire about it, but I think he, behind closed doors, he said to his buddy, listen, can't do this again. I got your back in public, because he is a player's coach. The players love him. I think he handled it well. But I think it is a big deal. Big deal for coaching staff.
Yeah. Sure. I'm sure it was. Chef, we got time for one more. Why don't you take this one? You got a good one here.
Do we only have time for one more? I think
so.
Well, are we not doing the hit, or is that?
Oh, we can do the hit if you want.
Yeah, we got time for two more. Let's go.
Well, we're gonna get back to NFL injuries, and this week we saw Trevor Lawrence absolutely demolished by Al Shahir as he's taking the forward slide well short of the first down marker. Gets absolutely demolished. In the poem, you said there's no intent to injure. Trey, roll the film and tell me, do you really feel this way?
Los Angeles has a 9-7 lead. We had a brawl here in the Texans-Jags game. You're going to see Azeez Al-Shaair come in and hit Trevor Lawrence as he was going down, and it is going down between the Texans and the Jags. An immediate brawl, a clear cheap shot, 3 different flags flew in. I'm going to lay out here. Guys, can we put up the audio and they can watch the replays here? This is not a good-looking play by Azeez Al-Shaair against Trevor Lawrence that the medical professionals run out to attend to as the fracas continues on the sidelines. Let's listen.
Yeah. So what's the question?
Intent to injure? Dude, he slid 4 yards back from the line of scrimmage.
Is
that not enough time?
Well, he said on Twitter he didn't intend to injure him, so I believe him. What's funny, actually, is after we talked before the show, I did some reading, and this guy has a bit of a history, right? Like, it's not his first offense. He was suspended 3 games. It's going to cost him $275,000. Intent or not, whatever he says, it was a dangerous hit. It's tough because defenders are taught to play football. Like, you've been taught since Pee-wee. Defend the blade of grass. Like, you defend every blade of grass. And the way quarterbacks are going these days with the slide, the fake slide, it leaves defenders in a really precarious situation to make a split-second decision. And you know what? Every guy that's on that field, if they even think, and in this situation, it didn't look like Trevor Lawrence was about to fake slide. Like, it looked like he was going to slide. I just think that the rule of the sliding quarterback needs to be addressed. Something needs to happen. We saw with Tua. We want to protect these guys. Yes, they don't need to take hits at the end of a 10-yard run. Maybe the ref needs to blow the whistle once they, get a first down or cover 5 yards and just really protect, kind of like in the UFC. In the UFC, when a guy's taking a pounding and at one point the referee makes a judgment call and jumps in, maybe the fighter could have kept going, but you know what? In this case, they got to blow the whistle a lot earlier than it is.
I'll tell you what, the rules are in place for a reason, and that was a clear forward slide. You and I have both been in a situation where you can take that extra step or lay off. That one wasn't even close to me. Guys, it's time that we're going to go to a break. But when we come back, we got our studs and duds of the week.
What about my last one?
We'll have to save that for the end. We're up against the clock, but let's see if we said that one at the end. Yeah, a little bit, Chef. We'll see you guys here on the other side.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
We're having some trouble in the hen house here.
No, Chevy's not happy with me at all.
I'm not happy. I'm not happy. This is live show. This is live show. I'm not happy because we cut to commercial early. We have four blitz questions. We got to hit them, but we cut
it on the 20s. Anyway,
Trey's the producer. Trey's the producer. He got the time. He would have got us on time in.
Yeah, Trey's bossing me too. All right, my bad. I think we're gonna wrap up the show with it though, because I think it's a great conversation.
Okay, so where do you want to go now? You're the producer.
No, that's carry on.
with what? What do we carry on with? Are we going to studs and duds? Is that where we're heading?
Studs and duds.
All right, so we're going to go studs and duds of the week. Sheldon, what's your first? Are we going duds or studs? What do you want
let's go duds. We can start with duds.
Hit your dud.
My dud of the week, Chev, is the Canada Post strike. Now, don't get me wrong. I know strikes happen and everybody has their right to work and to strike, power to the people. But you know what? They've been talking about this for a year. No surprise. Now, as the snow falls and the whole holidays close in, the only people that are really feeling the burn is all of us in Canada. You've got small businesses, dental offices that are relying on checks through insurance that still get sent through the mail, that are lacking funds, so they can't pay the bonuses at Christmas. They can't pay their staff. They're cutting back hours. You've got kids, Chev, writing letters to Santa Claus. They're not getting to the North Pole when there's a Santa strike or when there's a postal strike going on. You know what? I get it. People do have the right to strike, and I wish them all the best for their pay and their working conditions. But I think Canada Post this year is getting a big lump of coal in their stockings.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. But you know what I haven't seen in the mail in the last 2 weeks? I haven't seen a bill. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Do I still have to pay him if I haven't seen him?
I'm not sure. If you haven't seen them, do they truly exist?
I mean, can you just call your whoever you owe money to and be like,
you know what I think the real problem is that Canada Post and sending things through the mail these days, like everything I do is electronic. I'm not personally affected by this too badly, right? Everything's electronic. But, I've been hearing about people with disability checks and businesses that rely on insurance checks. Insurance companies still send checks through the mail, and it's hurting a lot of small businesses. And the timing of it is just horrible.
Well, Drew Schlitzler says they hate the strike. She hates the strike because you've been waiting on a Lululemon for weeks. Well, if you ordered on Amazon or Black Friday, anything I ordered last week through Amazon, I got. I guess they don't use Canada Post. So I'll move on to my dud of the week. I believe Trey can pull up the graphic. Many years ago, many moons ago today was when Patrick Waugh, 1995 on this date, Patrick Waugh was in for 9 goals against the Red Wings. Patrick Waugh, the great Patrick Waugh, was in for 9 goals against the Red Wings. His head coach, Mario Tremblay, refused to pull him. When he finally got the hook, Patrick Waugh went to the bench, walked right past his coach, told the president of the Habs at the time, which is Ronald Corey. He said, "That's my last game playing for the Montreal Canadiens." And he never surfaced again and went on to have a great career in Colorado, a couple of Stanley Cups after that. That was all because of Mario Tremblay. Let's play the video of this. This is a historic moment if you're a Habs fan.
An iconic figure of Montreal Canadiens hockey, but on December 2nd, 1995, it's a different story. Red Wings Canadiens from Montreal. First period, it's Vyacheslav Kozlov with a tap-in. Then Kozlov blasts one that Waugh can't make the save on. 3-1 Detroit. Late first, Paul Coffey to Stevie Y, the spinning slap pass for Greg Johnson, who makes it 5-1 Detroit after one. Second period on the power play. Red Wings work a tic-tac-toe. Kozlov backhands it past Waugh, who's diving all over the place for the hat trick. Everything going in for Detroit on this night. Matthew Dandino had 2 goals in this game. Still in the second, a moment hockey fans won't forget.
Long shot by Fedorov and a mock cheer, and Patrick Waugh responds. He did not appreciate that. And some boos come back at him.
Waugh with a sarcastic salute to the Montreal faithful, and Detroit wasn't done. Larionov down low feeds Sergei Fedorov, who buries the one-timer. Waugh finally gets the hook after a career-worst 9 goals on 26 shots. back on the bench, Waugh goes over to Canadiens president Ronald Corey and tells him that's it. The Red Wings go on to win 11-1, and 4 days after the incident, the Canadiens traded Waugh and captain Mike Keane to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Jocelyn Thibault, Martin Ruchinski, and Andrei Kovalenko. Waugh and the Avalanche would go on to win the Stanley Cup that season.
Oh, what a flashback, Chev.
Brings back terrible memories. Mario Tremblay, who was Patrick Waugh's teammate when they won a cup in 85-86, goes on to be the head coach and is my dud of the week because, you know what? I think back to that. I was a kid. It was 95. I was actually probably 18 years old, and I was a diehard Habs fan. And that was, for me, for the longest time, the beginning of the end. When Patrick left, they traded Chelios at that time. They traded all the greats, and they really never were the same ever. I mean, they threatened for a cup a couple of years ago during the COVID season, but that for me was the beginning of the end. I had become a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, believe it or not. We talked about this in other episodes for a while after that because Toronto had players that I liked. But man, I divorced the Canadiens for a long time. We made amends a number of years back. I'm still a diehard Habs fan. It's in my blood, kind of like Riders fans, right? You can't turn it off. But for a while there, man, I had anger, and that was the catalyst. And if you look at that Detroit team, I think that was the start of the team that won a bunch of cups in Detroit. You think of those names, Yzerman, Larionov, all those guys. But yeah, that was a terrible, terrible moment in history if you're a Habs fan.
Yeah, I just love the moment too, because I can almost put myself in his shoes when he walks over there. The president says, "I'm done. Trade me. This is over." I mean, that was a very powerful moment.
And you never saw anything like that. And actually tonight, Patrick Waugh returned to Montreal with the New York Islanders as a head coach. They lost 2-1 to the Habs, but kind of a historic night. And they asked him about that today, and he said, "You know what? It's always been special playing in Montreal." He kind of took the high road. This is not his first time back in Montreal, but it kind of odd that tonight is the anniversary and he returns as a head coach. But yeah, bygones be bygones. He's a Habs legend. He's going to go up on the wall, Hall of Famer. But you know what? He also turned in a few Hall of Fame seasons for the Avalanche as well. Nasty, your stud of the week.
Oh, it's my stud this week, Chev. This is for you. This is for Jamin if you're out there. My stud of the week, none other than Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Yes, Chev, that Trudeau.
Stud.
The man who brought us, as you referenced last week, blackface controversies, ethics scandals, and vacation invoices that could rival the GDP of a small country. He's always done the wrong thing at the wrong time. But this week, with Trump coming out publicly threatening Canada and Mexico with 25% tariffs, I'm going to drop the hammer on you guys if you don't fix the border. In the past, Trudeau would scoff at him. He would make little snide remarks. You would see him joking with other world leaders about Justin Trudeau or about President Trump. This time he took it seriously. He took a senior cabinet official, jumped on his plane first thing for Friday, not announcing it, not making it a public spectacle, and flew down to Mar-a-Lago in Florida to meet with President Trump on Friday night. I don't know if he can hold his water in a fight if they got to drag it out between him and Trump. But this is the first time in 15 years or since 2015 that I've seen Justin Trudeau do something presidential. He got out in front of a problem. He did the right thing. I don't know if he's got the talent to get us out of this thing, but he actually stopped talking, stopped putting on a facade, and stopped blaming climate change on the jet trip down there. And he just did something positive that's hopefully going to get Canada a proper response to put this thing to an end.
Well, and again, my political affiliations, but from what I understand, and insiders in the room, what was reported today is that he was groveling to Trump, saying that you can't bankrupt us with these tariffs.
And what did Trump say?
Trump's like, well, if you think you're going to rob us of $100 billion a year, we might as well annex you as the 51st state, and you could be the governor.
Yeah, be the governor. He said, well, we're going to split you into two states. So you're going to have the one liberal side and the one Democratic side, or the one Republican conservative side, and we'll be good. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, it was the right thing for a change. I'm shocked that he did it, that he went down there and got out in front of a problem, and he's not apologizing for it or bad-mouthing Trump in the media. That was actually a good move. We'll see what he could do with it.
Yeah, well, my stud of the week, we talked last week about Baker Mayfield having to sue his family who defrauded him of $12 million, and that's been ongoing, but last week he filed a lawsuit, and the duds were his parents, his dad and his brother. This week, my stud is going to be Baker Mayfield and his wife, Emily. Their foundation donated $17,000 to a local high school team that didn't have helmets, they didn't have proper equipment, and that team, Space Coast Football, are state champs thanks to the donation of the Mayfields. And if they didn't have that equipment, if they didn't have that donation, they wouldn't be able to compete. They went on, they win. So from a news headline that produced a dud last week, we've got our stud, Baker Mayfield. I love watching this guy. He's a fun guy to watch. His career sure has had a resurgence since he's taken over in Tampa Bay, and he looks like he's having fun. He looks like his teammates have fun around him, and good for him, and doing some good things off the field as well. So that's my stud of the week. Baker Mayfield, good job.
Great call, Chev. I love that one. That is a real good feel good one. I wish Simon Fraser University had somebody like that a year ago. Not that it would have made any difference, but here's the thing, Chev, is partners and co-hosts in a show like this, we've got to have some level of trust, right? Okay. I trusted you to keep the trains on time, that we're going to get out on the 20s. We're going to get people out in an hour, and you got to trust me that I'm going to make some good decisions and do the right thing. Here we are with a perfect amount of time on a conversation that I know both of us want to talk about. Let's ask that last question. We don't have to call it the Blitz, but this thing is worth bringing up. What did you want to talk about before the break?
Okay, I'm following you here. College rivalry weekend in the NCAA this weekend. We talked about in the poem. There were some post-game traditions that sparked brawls as Michigan, NC State, Florida, even Arizona, I believe Arizona, celebrated by planting flags in their opposing teams' logos. This sparked some outrage from the losing teams and chaos ensued. Trey, roll the clip.
That's what we are. That's what Michigan does, man. And that's what we do. First of all, it's not this.
And folks, something interesting is going on the field right now. Michigan tried to plant their flag in the middle of the Ohio State field, and the Buckeyes rushed right to them. And now there's some skirmishes going on the field.
Happening in the middle of the field with fans on the field. This is not a pretty scene. This is not good. This is scary. You got players with their helmets off.
This is a bad scene. Both in the middle of the field, the fight has spilled over to the NC State bench. The NC State wanted to plant the flag in midfield, and players like J.J. Jones took exception to it.
Yes, first round playoffs, Tennessee State and Montana. As we go final, and Florida plants the flag. We've seen this cause chaos around college football. Started with Michigan, Ohio State, UNC, and North Carolina State got into it. And
they got to get rid of this flag planting stuff. This is causing too many problems here.
So, Nasty, you played in the NCAA in Iowa State against big rivals, Iowa. Did you ever plant your flag sparking a brawl, or is this a new thing in the new age of athletes where discipline and I believe respect for the other team seem to be eroded? Where do you stand on this?
Well, first off, we never planted our flag. Second game every year was the Cy-Hawk Trophy, playing in, alternating between Iowa and Iowa State. I was never fortunate enough to win to plant the flag. That would have been a pretty cheesy move on my part to try that. But at the same time, here's the thing. You can't go into somebody else's building and do that. For me, the whole problem is it's the wrong move to go in there and fight the guys for doing it. But the problem here is, as long as the NCAA allows things like this to happen, you're going to get these fights. You're trained to respect the logo. Chev, you've probably never once stepped on the Eskimos or the Stampeders logo in the locker room. It's just not done. Let alone to let somebody come in there and just plant a flag on your turf. I think that's one of those things that you need to regulate out of the game, that's an instant disqualification.
Yeah, I don't even know if you need to regulate it out of the game. I just think that coaches are prepared for everything. We talked about Dan Campbell. We talked about Mark Kilam. We talked about how prepared coaches are. When you go into a rivalry game, you prepare your guys, your young men for this. Football is about not just the X's and O's, as we talked about. It's about preparing young men for life. That's the one thing that football can give young men that no other sport does, and it's unique to young men. Yes, women play tackle football, but at that level, at that age, there's not many people that play in front of that crowd, having that much influence. And I believe that the coaches of those teams did it wrong. But there is one coach out there that did it right. I want to play the Steve Sarkisian clip. Steve Sarkisian of Texas versus Texas A&M. Let's take a look at this.
Has avoided a possible post-game scuffle after they beat Texas A&M. Texas players celebrated on the field, but some moved midfield to the Aggies logo, but head coach Steve Sarkisian stopped it, telling his horns to pull back.
Rivalries are great, but there's a way to win it with class, and I just didn't think that's the right thing to do. We shouldn't be on their logo. We shouldn't be planting any flags on their logo, and I'd like to, whenever that day comes, get the same respect in return.
Yeah.
I see the comments and guys are saying, well, don't lose. I'm not saying don't celebrate.
Rubio.
Not don't celebrate, but celebrate with class. I like the way Steve Harris, there's a way to celebrate. You celebrate with your teams, among your fans. You don't degrade the other team that you just won a competition with. That's my personal opinion. I think that's the way I mentor guys, young kids. Yeah, we're going to beat the tar out of them, but then we're going to celebrate amongst us.
You know what, Chev?
That's how
I got one thing to say, and then I'm going to give you the last word. In football, you can't go to the other bench and walk in there and flip them off, drink their Gatorade, knock over their trainers. You just leave them alone. When you win, you're not entitled to go into their bench area and cause a ruckus. And for me, the same thing at the end of the game. The only way you're going to get rid of this is to take it right out of the game. If you plant a flag on my field, I'm sorry, we're fighting. As bad as it is, the only way to really avoid this is like Sarkisian did, kept them, pushed them away, and the players listened to him. But you got to regulate it out of the game and with some serious consequences, or else you're going to see more of this. That was 3 fights in one day.
Yeah, the game is the game. Teaching respect is about teaching respect, and there's lessons you learn in winning. There's lessons you learn in losing, and learning to be a good winner is just as important as learning to be a good loser. And I think those teams that brawled, the ones that planted the flags, were wrong. I believe the ones that had to step up were wrong. Yeah, I get that it makes for great spectacle, and in the machismo of the sport, it's great. And but you know what? There's a higher level of responsibility, I believe, when you're on TV in front of that stage to show because you know what? That's going to happen in a peewee game. That's going to happen in a bantam game. And that's stupid that happens because kids imitate what they see on TV, and we see it all the time. Maybe I'm an old man yelling at the moon, but that's exactly what's going to happen next. Kids imitate those guys, so I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Listen, we run up against the clock. Sheldon challenged me for an hour. We're at an hour. We're Chevy and Nasty. You can follow us, like, and subscribe to all our socials. Every week, we're brought to you by Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media. You can find us on YYC Business. And also tomorrow, this podcast is going to be up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the comments. I don't agree with all of you sometimes. I don't agree with Nasty all the time. I don't agree with Trey all the time, but I love having you guys, and I love the debate. I love the live show. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week on episode 55.